Okay, we're just lubing the inside of the housing with some, well, it happens to be fully synthetic oil, but you don't have to use any type of oil. Alright, once that's, that'll help it seat okay. And then bring it at the bearing, and then we'll start pressing it in. Tool I've made up. All it consists of is a 20mm bar with a nylock on one end, with a 20mm washer on, with various outer race cups just welded together to come up against the back of the actual housing. This one is just a bearing housing again. As you can see, it's got a couple of washers on it. Okay, which is 1/2 mil smaller than the bearing itself. We must press just on the outer race of it, otherwise we'll damage the bearing. And then I'll put it through the back of the hub, and then hopefully we can just ease that into the hub. Two 30mm spanners, one on the back holding the nut, one on the front here. Okay, and I'm just going to draw the bearing in. Should go in nice and square. Which is going in quite nicely. I put some oil on the shaft, on the actual thread, and also on the end. So I've got to be very precise here now to get it absolutely square, to get it into the housing. Just got to get it past there. That's it. Now, last few millimeters in. Right, that's gone tight. So that's it. Then we'll remove the tool and put the circlip in. Okay, just putting the circlip back in now. Okay, there's the circlip seated. Give it a little tap just to make sure it's in the groove, but it looks absolutely fine. Yeah, that's lovely. The next job is put some more of this oil within the bearing. Then I'm going to have to draw the hub in. But when I draw the hub in, got to support the inner part of the bearing. If not, it'll tear it out, and that's your bearing ruined. So all this work will be for nothing. Right, you've used the same tool again. Okay, 20mm studding, the same spacer on the front. We've used some washers on the back to protect the inner part of the bearing, just to cover the bearing, the inner part. So when you do this up, it doesn't actually pull the inner part of the bearing out. Okay, now we're just going to wind this up. It's going in very nicely. The only reason I'm using 20mm studding is to get the maximum load on it. Right, and that's it. Let's just loosen that off. Okay, and that's it. Okay, just put the drive shaft back into the hub assembly, which then we'll put the big 30mm nut back on. We'll align the paint marks I put earlier on the CV and to the differential housing to make it very easy. We know where to line up. Then all we have to do is put the disc back on and remount the caliper. But we'll show you that in a minute. Right, we've got the drive shaft in, got the nut on. It's getting it's a little bit stiff, so I put the nut on. I'm going to use the air gun just to draw the shaft all the way through. All right, and then we'll bolt it to the other side. Right, that's done. We'll line the marks, rebolt that, and then we've just got the I'll have to stake these over, which I'll show you that in a minute, after we've done the drive shaft up. This will need torquing. There's 3 different torque settings depending on the size of shaft: 22, 24 mil and 27 mil. Okay, we've got a 22 mil here, so that's 200 newton meters of torque. Okay, we're just using a 3/8 long extension with an E12 on the end to do them up. Just a short 3/8 ratchet, gets in there quite nicely, and just do them up one at a time. Spin it round to get it to the top, so it's much easier to do them up than at the bottom, obviously because of the hang of the suspension. When they're properly, we'll torque them to their torque. Okay, just putting the disc back on now, lining it up with the hole, putting the Allen bolt back in, and just tightening up the Allen bolt. There we go. Lovely. Then after that, I'm going to replace the caliper. Use a little bit of Loctite on the mounting bolt brackets. Okay. Then we'll finally torque the main drive shaft nut up. Zoom in on the bolt.
What bolt in his hand?
With my hand. I'll just apply a little bit of Loctite 243, which is a medium strength locker with a bit of lock and seal. Okay. Just don't want it to come undone. Also, they'll be torqued to 67 newton meters. Okay. So I'll just put them back in, and they're 16 mil. So after this, all we've got to do is to put the anti-roll bar back up into place, remount the exhaust, and mustn't forget to do is to torque the main drive shaft nut, but I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so all we've got left to do now is just we'll put some lubricant on the actual exhaust mount rubbers, put them back into place. We've got a bracket at the front here, which we undid just to lower the exhaust a little bit to enable us to get the drive shaft out. Alright, we've hooked up the anti-roll bar, which is only 2 13 mil bolts, very simple. After we've done that, the last thing we'll do is to torque the nut and then just stake them. Okay, and I'll show you that in a minute. With the handbrake on and the rear brake on, I'm just going to torque this up to 200 meters. That's it, done. With the nut torqued to 200 newton meters, all what's left to do is just stake the nut using an old screwdriver or a hammer. That's one done. Turn it around and stake the other one. And that's it. Right, what's left to do now is fit the road wheel, and that's the bearing done. That's how to fit one. Must be honest, we've had our problems, but we've got over them.